Hello everyone. In this 40k thoughts video, we'll be talking about I'll be talking about my thoughts and opinions on transports and dedicated transports. Now, as before we get into the nitty-gritty and the thoughts and experiences of it, we'll move into disclaimer. So, disclaimer, I'm not going to be talking about aircraft units like Stormraven gunships and Thunderhawks. Yes, those are transports. Those can transport models and units and dreadnoughts and all that. I'm well aware of that. I'm not bringing them up because there are inherent differences between how you would use them compared to using like a Land Raider or a Repulsor. And secondly, as a disclaimer, and this is more like a consideration, when I say transport, I don't just mean specifically dedicated transports such as rhinos, impulsors, trucks, and wave serpents. I when I am saying transport, I'm more specifically referring to land raiders, repulsors, land fortresses, battle wagons, and other non-dedicated transport vehicles that can transport models. So that is the disclaim. These are the two disclaimers I have to say. Actually, another disclaimer is I have primarily experienced using transports via Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines. Way back when I tried Leagues of Votann in their index, they were another army I used a lot of transports because all of their vehicles are transports in some way, shape, or form. But, without further ado, let's get into my thoughts. My thoughts on transports, dedicated and non-dedicated transports, are that number one, they're very useful at getting units that you know where you need them to be, right? Whether that's talking about turn one, sending a land raider all the way up into the mid board and then disembarking guys and trying to get a turn one charge, or using a impulsor or repulsor or rhino to stage your units or get into a staging position on turn one and then turn two you make moves with the units that are inside. Point number two is I do think that transports, dedicated and non-dedicated transports, can be used as bunkers and line of sight blockers. That's overall a good thing for shooting and melee armies. Maybe more so melee than shooting armies. It depends on maybe what you're looking on doing. Although I do think that dedicated transports, such as the Rhino and the Impulsor, don't make for as good of bunkers and line of sight blockers, and that is primarily due to their size. Like Rhinos in particular are actually quite small. And to that end, I do think that makes not only does that make them bad at, or less efficient at line of sight blocking, but also disembarking units from a rhino can be more annoying than disembarking from a land raider because of how much smaller the vehicle is. Therefore, the 3-inch bubble around it to disembark is, well, it's smaller. On top of that, on the bunker side of things, I think that dedicated transports like the Rhino and the Razorback and the Impulsor make for worse bunkers is because their toughness and their wounds are, generally speaking, less than that of a Land Raider or a Repulsor. Moving on to my hot takes, thoughts on this, and these are more personal things I would like to see happen with transports, either dedicated or non-dedicated. But first hot take is I think dedicated transports should, generally speaking, be closer to 100 points. I personally don't think that a dedicated transport should cost the same amount or less than a battle line unit of minimum size. I think that is too cheap, right? I think that if most dedicated transports were closer to 100 points, either a little bit under or a little bit over, so let's say within the points range of 90 to 110 points, I think that would be perfectly fine. Now, granted, I'm not saying this should include every army, because some armies either have dedicated transports that are more expensive, like the Ghost Ark for the Necrons, and for other armies like the Imperial Guard or the Adeptus Mechanicus and even Genestealers, their dedicated transports are pretty cheap, but also you have a lot more units that you need to transport around. You have a lot more Cadians, Skitarii, neophytes, all that stuff. For armies like that, where you have a crap ton of bodies that you need to move around, I think that those dedicated transports should stay, relatively speaking, pretty cheap. Maybe if they saw a points increase, push them closer to 75 points and kind of hover around that range by 10 or so points, right? Keep it within the range of like 60 to 85 or some such. My personal opinion on that. And that's why I'm saying this is a hot take. You can feel free to disagree with me in the comments down below. Second hot take that I have is I think that the base variant of the Repulsor and the base Land Raider variant should be 200 points or less. Now, as of my knowledge, the base variant of the Repulsor for the Black Templars specifically is, I believe, 195 points, whereas the base variant of the Land Raider is 220 points. Now, part of why I feel like this should be the case, why they should both be roughly the same points, if not the same points, is when you look at a Land Raider and you look at a Repulsor, they are both roughly the same size. They both transport the same amount of models and have the same stipulations between, Terminator and Gravis units taking up 2 spaces, within a transport, and then Centurions taking up 3. That's the same. Their stats are the same. They have the same movement, same toughness, same. I believe the save is different, but generally speaking, their stat line is the same. Their size profile is generally the same. Their number of war gear options that they have access to, like their range weapons, is the same total amount, which is 5. It's just what the options are different between the two vehicles, obviously. So the biggest, the biggest difference at current is just the Land Raider is more expensive than the Repulsor, and their abilities are different. If I'm not mistaken, the base Repulsor's ability is effectively a emergency disembarkation. In a way, if I'm not mistaken, if a unit is being targeted to be fired at, they can hop into the Repulsor or they can hop out of it. If I'm mistaken in that, please feel free to correct me in the comments down below. But compare that to the Land Raider, where you can turn one just kind of ram that thing up, and even though the Land Raider is moved, whatever is embarked in it can still disembark and make charges. Now, yes, there's a lot of value in that, and there's also a lot of value in the Repulsor. But beyond those two differing abilities and the war gear options, why aren't they the same points cost, or why aren't they very close to each other? Now to that end, do I think that like the the variants of the Repulsor and the Land Raider should be adjusted points wise? It probably. I think the Repulsor Executioner could definitely see a points increase by 10 or 15 points. Maybe at most 20. Make it 240. That's a hot take. Sue me, I guess. The Land Raider Crusader could stay at 220 points. Make it more expensive than the base Land Raider. Sure, you could say that that's a bad idea, and that, why would anyone use it at that point? More carry capacity. It can transport 16 models compared to the base Land Raider transporting 12. Yeah, its weapon options are worse, but hey, you can carry more bodies. You can carry a full unit of Gravis, of aggressors with an Apothecary Biologus and a Captain in Gravis armor. Yeah, it's expensive still, but hey, you could do that with a Crusader Land Raider, but you can't do that of a base Land Raider. So those are my hot takes. Those are my thoughts on the transports, dedicated and non-dedicated. So we're moving on into my experiences with said vehicles, dealing with them and playing with them. Now, overall experiences with transport units, as I said in my disclaimer, I'm usually the one who is using transports and never really the one dealing with them. In my Black Templars army, I currently use 2 Repulsor Executioners to transport 2 units of Sword Brethren with Marshal and Castellan. I do occasionally replace these Repulsor Executioners with Land Raiders, either the base Land Raider or the Crusader variant. And this is namely in part because when the Repulsor Executioner, maybe in the future, it gets hit with a nerf and it's made more expensive, I can just swap them out for Land Raiders, and nothing terribly massive changes with the points cost of my army and just my general game plan. Yeah, I lose a lot of shooting from the replacement of the executioners of land raiders, but that's not too much of a big deal. My army is more melee oriented anyway, and the repulsor executioners are really the only source of my shooting. So it's like, if they got taken down anyway, then oh well, it's that was whatever. In my Chaos Space Marine army, I've more often than not used a Chaos Land Raider in it. I just overall prefer it as my main like bunker. You move it up onto the midboard objective, vomit out my 10 chosen led by Fabius Bile, and then they just kind of go hog wild. In the past, I've used a or a Chaos Rhino for my Chaos Space Marine army, but I found I really did not like how small it was. Like, it being small was nice for maneuvering it around, but the problem I had was when disembarking the Chosen with Fabius Bile, I found that the smaller 3-inch radius around the Rhino made it more difficult to disembark stuff and to get them properly disembarked, whether it was from an emergency disembarkation from the Rhino dying, or just on my turn disembarking them. In terms of dealing with transports, either dedicated or non-dedicated, in my game against the Tau Empire, against my friend Andreas, he was using 2 Devilfish transporting Breacher teams. If memory serves me right, he didn't have any characters attached to them. They were just 10-man Breacher teams by themselves, although I could be mistaken. In that game, both of them basically didn't stand a chance. One got blown up by Vashtor by him just bonking it with his hammer real hard, and then the other one got blown up by my 2 Predators in that match. The second time, or another time I've dealt with transports was against the Emperor's Children in a more recent game where I was playing Black Templars. My friend Brody was using 2 Chaos Rhinos transporting 1 unit of 6 Noise Marines with a Lord Cacophonus in them. So in total, there were 2 Rhinos with 2 units of 6 Noise Marines with Lord Cacophonists. Similar to the Tau game, those transports didn't really do a whole lot because they're rhinos. They're toughness 9, toughness 10. So, sword brethren charging in and cutting those to ribbons. That's, yeah, they're gonna crack those nuts open. Or if a repulsor executioner shoots it with a heavy laser destroyer, yeah, it's gonna do a lot of damage. So I didn't really see a whole lot of I didn't really have a whole lot of like bad experience of that. Although I did feel bad for my friend because one of his units of Noise Marines ended up, because they couldn't all get disembarked within 3 inches of the Rhino, and because of how like where it was positioned, of his unit of 6 Noise Marines, only 2 of them got to live, plus the Lord Cacophonist. So that was a big feels bad moment for him. And then lastly, my friend Jack was playing Orcs. This was his first time trying Orcs. This was way back when. This was early on when I was starting to play Chaos Space Marines. He had 2 trucks transporting 1 unit of 10 Ludas each. So 2 trucks with 2 units of Ludas. If memory serves me correctly, there were no characters attached to that. And he pretty much just played them in a way where he got over onto the side objectives with the trucks, had his Ludas jump out of them, and then he pretty much kept the trucks parked on the objectives while the Ludas just kind of slowly moved up and like blasted stuff. And overall, like those trucks in that case didn't do much, but it wasn't too much of a big deal. They weren't a hassle to deal with my Chaos Space Marines, and that was the first time that I was like, man, like Possessed really just beat the crap out of stuff. But with that, guys, that'll be the end of my thoughts and experiences and hot takes and whatnot about transports, dedicated and non-dedicated. I want to thank you all for watching and listening. Very much do appreciate you guys coming by and enjoying the content. As always, what kind of experiences have you had with transport units, whether dedicated or non-dedicated? How many do you use? Do you use any? Do you prefer using transports? Feel free to let me know in the comments section down below. As always, let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more content like this in the future. Feel free to like the videos, share it, subscribe, do all that. If you don't like the video, or you think I'm sound dumb, or I got dumb hot, or I have a dumb opinion about stuff, oh well, I understand. Not everyone can agree, but that's fine. That is perfectly fine. But with that, guys, I hope you're having a great time wherever you may find yourself, whether you're at home or you're at work or at school and you're on your way home. Hope you're having a good time. And if things are going poorly, well, then I hope they can turn around and get better for you. But until the next time, guys, I'll see you next time. Peace.